Good morning. I hope you guys can hear me because yesterday we had some troubles. I hope everybody's doing well, and I don't have my phone. I sent quality control in the other room so that I could check to see if I can be heard, and quality control has returned with the verdict, and yes, I can be. So fantastic. Good morning. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Rachel. It's good to see you. Good morning to the other 14 people who are watching and not talking. Good morning to you too. I know it's early. You're probably, hey, Shauna, good morning. I know it's early, and well, it's 9 for if you're on the East Coast. It's 8 if you're on the Central Time Zone. I went live a little bit earlier than 8:15 because I saw that Law and Crime was live, and I saw the judge, and I thought, oh boy, I better go. So what we're going to do today is, this is Chloe Driver. She was convicted last month in the murder of her 13-month-old daughter, Hannah, back in 2020. And good. I'm so glad you guys can hear me. So today is her sentencing. Now, Chloe has been convicted of malice murder, felony murder, and felony cruelty to children. And she faces up to life in prison. However, Georgia, I think, might do it a little bit differently. I think that I'm not sure that life in prison means your natural life in prison. I'm not sure if that means that you would get an opportunity at parole. And there's also the other factor, which is her being found guilty but mentally ill. And it's not a whole total not guilty by reason of insanity, which would then be her spending whatever time she's sentenced to in a prison mental health hospital, but she'll do a little bit of both. So she'll spend time in a prison run mental health hospital, and then she'll spend time in an actual prison. And I'm really curious to watch this and see what she ends up with, because I've not ever seen a verdict like this. The only thing that I've really ever seen, it's not that I've never seen like a trial where the defendant is saying not guilty by reason of insanity, but it's that I've never seen a jury find the defendant guilty but mentally ill. I've only ever seen them find, I don't think I've ever seen actually a verdict returned of not guilty by reason of insanity. I've only ever seen them return a verdict of guilty. So I'm really curious how this is going to be. And I'm also very curious how this, I know what, like when she's sentenced, I know it's going to be put into record. So I know what it's going to look like on paper. But what I don't know is how it's going to be executed in, the real world, which is what matters. Right. So I'm really interested to see what she gets. And even after everything that I've watched with her, and we've listened to prison or jail calls between Jason Spillers and Hannah's father, Benjamin Ben Michael Z. Brian. I'm kind of on the fence still about how I feel about all of this. Hey, the chicken lady, how are you doing? Oh, you're adulting this morning? Ugh. Adulthood, the very worst hood there is. I'm still really on the fence about how I feel about all of this, because when you listen to their phone conversations, and by the way, shout out to the Shaming of Jay for getting those and being super cool and letting other creators use that content, crediting his channel, of course. I always credit, but shout out to the Shaming of Jay for just being cool like that. I like it when creators can share. Like I don't mind if people use anything that I put out jail call wise, like with Letitia, as long as they credit, and most creators do. So I think that's like the spirit in which YouTube was kind of created, or it's supposed to be sort of like that, but you know how it be on these streets. Good morning, preschool granny. It's good to see you. Adulting is hard. And I got to tell you, chicken lady, like, bruh, I'm over it. Okay. I know that I'm an adult and I know that I'm supposed to be, doing all the adulting things and whatnot, but I don't, I don't really want to. Wonder how I can move this. Hold on. Doesn't really, no. Doesn't let me. Let me see if I can do it like this. No, that's not what I want. Definitely not. Let's see what else we have. Oh, that'll work. Actually, let me move me over here. There we go. That's better. So you guys get a fuller view of all the things. Hey, Charlie, good to see you. How are you? Yeah, I don't really want to. I'm not feeling adulty today. I think I need to escalate the call to an adultier adult. I could, while we wait, if you guys could just do me a little favor. If you wouldn't mind thumbing up the stream, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. When I took the time off to move, of course, I fell out of the algorithm a little bit, and so that does help me get recommended. If you think I should be recommended, maybe you feel like, hey, bruh, like, no, we don't feel like Jen Lu should be recommended. Bendy be doing too much sometimes. So however you guys feel. Good morning, Lee the Bee. I appreciate it. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's good to see you guys, everybody being here. There's something, if you guys missed my stream last night, there was a change. There was a change in the lineup. We had to put in a pinch hitter at the very last minute with one Sarah, no edits, boom. Okay. So Sarah, in all of her glory, decided, it's not enough that I read that horrible statement in open court in front of God and everybody. No, 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 no. I am going to take the original statement that I wrote and some plagiarized beginning of the statement to the judge, the letter to the judge. I'm going to plagiarize some of the letter that I wrote to the judge, and I'm going to go ahead and file that with the court for the entire world to see, because it's very important for me to show everybody just how much forgiveness I have. I'm not bitter at all, which, of course, as we know, she is incredibly bitter. None of that sounded at all like forgiveness. I mean, just because you write the words, I forgive you, 11 billion times does not mean that you actually have forgiveness in your heart. And hey, love Louie, good to see you. Oh, thank you, Canine Charlie. I appreciate that very, very much. That means a lot to me. I love it when you guys are enjoying the content and everything. I do. I appreciate that. And also, while we wait, I want to drop a few links for you guys. I want to drop Allie's link. She has a fantastic channel I think you guys will like. I collaborate with her quite frequently. I'm also going to drop Nadine's, hold on a second, link for her wax melts. Her wax melts, you guys, are amazing. And Christmas is right around the corner. And there's holiday parties, holiday office parties. Maybe one of your family members is bringing somebody new to Christmas this year, and you don't know what to get them, and you don't want to just not get them anything. That's perfect for this. Stocking stuffers, all the things. They last an incredible amount of time, and they are. See, for me personally, I like to have a consistent scent throughout the home, and you can use really one warmer in a central location, and the whole house will smell. It's amazing. And then I'm going to just drop my link just in case you want to tip your hostess. It's not an obligation. Just you guys being here shows support, and I appreciate that just as much. There you go. Oh, it's Kismet. That you guys were thinking of each other. Love, Louie, and hey, C. Cooper, and K9 Charlie, and you're together. It's Kismet. It's fate. What else was I going to tell you? I had something else. Oh, okay. So Sarah Boon. So last night during the stream with Lori Vallow, I read Sarah Boon's letter. Now, I do intend to make a separate video of, yes, Love Louie. Oh, wrong one. Love Louie says, I love wax melts so much. I need to order. I use the ones that plug in. So I have the ones that plug in, like the big warmer. I do think that you can use, I know there's some ones that are just like walls that the warmers on the back, and they plug right, they're smaller and they plug right into the wall. You can use those. You can use the wax melts in those too. Oh, wow. I love that. Lee the Bee says, I ordered some of Nadine's melts as gifts and ended up keeping a lot of them for myself because they are so awesome. They are so awesome. And one of the scents that I'm hoping that she brings back is Just Like Heaven. That is a Bendy Lou inspired scent they created just for me. It is pineapple and green apple. OMG. Just Like Heaven is the perfect name for it. Obviously, it's inspired because from the Cure song. I love the Cure. They're my favorite band of all time. I just love them. So yeah, I love Nadine's wax melts. And, she is, and I'll tell you another thing. When you get the package, Nay's packages are personalized for you. So it's personal, and it adds that, it's a little extra special touch, and I just really love it. Hey, Topines, good to see you. Good morning. I can be like that too, Chicken Lady. I can relate. Chicken Lady says, I'm one of those people that once I like one scent, it's the only one I get. Yeah, I can be like that too. When I find something that I like to have it in abundance. It's just how I roll. Yes, K9 Charlie, she does have Christmas scents and ones that smell like food. So they're all fantastic. So totally go check her link out. Absolutely. And don't forget to use my code, which is Queen of Roasting, and you'll get a discount. So, preschool granny, I'm sorry that you are sick. Preschool Granny says, I've been miserable, stuck in bed this week. But some, not the vid, thank goodness, but some other crud. So thank you, Jen Lou. I've had you to listen to and get a laugh here and there. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm glad I could make you feel a little tiny bit better and make you laugh. Oh, Karen. Karen says, I think I'd love the Heaven Sent. You would. It is delicious. And I really, really, I hoard those ones because, oh gosh, they smell so good. Artemis Prime, you haven't been to bed. What's going on, babe? Good to see you. So now we're just basically kicking it, waiting for court to start. I don't know what she's going to get, but I'll say this: I don't think we're going to hear from Jason Spillers or Benjamin, Ben Michael, Z, Brian, because they're both currently locked up. So they may have allowed Z to write something, and that will be read because obviously, technically, he is a victim. Hannah is his daughter. So he would be able to give a victim impact statement. He would be eligible for that. I'm curious. I know at the verdict, the state, or no, was it the state? No. I believe actually it was the defense. They were talking about Hannah or Chloe's mom. And yes, Stevie, he is. He was arrested, I think, either right before or right after Thanksgiving. And as of yet, so the way that it's listed on his mugshot is fugitive from justice, which usually is bail jumping. But I can't find or haven't been able to find yet the original charge for which he was bailed out, then he jumped bail. So I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with that. So I definitely want to, I'll find out. Eventually, I always find out. So I'm going to do a separate standalone video with Sarah's letter. That's what I started to say, and then I got way off in the weeds. But yeah, I want to do just a video by itself with the reading, and I'm going to read it in its entirety. And I think I might do a little something special. So be on the lookout for that. And I know that it's the 12th of December, and we really only have basically 13 more days until Christmas. I've almost done with my Christmas intro, so I'm gonna do that for you guys. I'll have that going for y'all. So be looking out for that when I'm live. So yeah, I'm really curious. They were trying to work out the logistics of getting Chloe's mom to either be there to be here in person, or to be able to appear by Zoom to give a statement. And I believe that she will be giving a statement on behalf of Chloe, which is another like layer to this case. And it seems to me that, whenever there's a trial, we get obviously far more of the story, of the evidence, of the situation than we do when it's an ongoing investigation, right? Even when there's an arrest made, and like the probable cause affidavit is released to the public and we get it and we read it, that's not even everything, obviously. It gives you a good general idea, but it's the bare minimum that the state needs in order to secure an arrest warrant. So it's not everything. It's not even close to everything. And it's not even their truly most compelling evidence, because the burden there is, in order for them to meet the criteria to get a warrant, is substantially lower than at trial, which is obviously beyond a reasonable doubt. So I feel like in this situation, there is a dynamic that exists, which is true for every family. All families have a level of dysfunction in them. I think whenever you're dealing with human beings, just in general, there's a level of dysfunction because everybody brings their own brand to the table, as it were. But in families, there's a certain level of dysfunction, even in the most healthy families. I think that's just how it is. But there is something that we didn't get during the trial. Something that exists between her mother, Chloe, and her mother, that really didn't come out in the trial. Hey, Sprinkled Donut, good to see you. Welcome in. There's some weird thing that exists between them that we didn't really get. Like, we heard a phone call in the state's rebuttal case. And it's a phone call between Chloe and her mother while Chloe is awaiting trial. So she's in jail. And they were talking about this money. So what had happened was Z had his 3 wives, Chloe and the 2 other wives, apply for this. It's not a loan. It's money from the government that you could get during the pandemic for small businesses. And it had something to do with, they were a religion, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was something like $150,000. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. $150,000. Well, Chloe was the only one who was able to get it. And she had moved that money, $60,000 of it, if I'm not mistaken, or $50,000 of it. And she moved it out of her own account, Chloe's own account, into an account, into her mother's account. And so there's a phone call between them, and they're talking about this money. And Chloe wants to give the money to Z, and her mother is obviously adamantly against it. And there's just this exchange that occurs between them, and it's not what they said. It's more like how they said it, and the whole tone of that call. You can, to me, it seems that they have a very damaged relationship. And that makes me sad because, it's, speaking as a mom whose children are now legal adults, it's a bit of an adjustment, because that they're adults, and so they can make their own decisions and make their own choices, and you hope that you've done everything in your power to guide them in those choices so that they make good choices and that they have good consequences rather than negative consequences. But at the end of the day, the choices and the consequences that come with them are their own. But it's so difficult to stand back as a parent and watch it happen. But there's good things about that too, like since I've been in Texas, I've got to see my daughter be a mom, and she is a fantastic mama. And so, but their relationship seems very fractured, and it seems like, honestly, that neither one trusts the other fully. And yes, Rachel, all of this. Rachel says everything else. Also, Rachel, just as a side note, I don't think I've ever said this before, but your profile picture is very pretty. Everything else aside, just the fact that these egomaniacal men were such freeloaders is enraging. It is, especially because of their views on government. And listen, the United States of America, we're allowed free thinking. It's encouraged. We have freedom of speech, although that freedom of speech isn't free from consequences. Obviously, that goes without saying. But, we're allowed to criticize the government, right? But if you are completely, totally anti-government, why are you taking handouts from the government? Like, who do you think you are? That's what irritates me. You're welcome, babe. That I just don't like it. It's so hypocritical, And I think we are all a little hypocritical to an extent, but to be so vocal about it and to have it as part of your belief system interwoven with your religious beliefs it's super hypocritical. If why are you taking help if you fundamentally disagree with everything? You're totally against the man. Get out of here, whatever. Go drink some more pee. So yeah, it's annoying and it's frustrating. And it's irritating. And I'm over it. But I see we got some new people joining us. Good morning. Good morning. If you're just listening while you're getting ready to go to work or you're doing adulting, I'm sorry you have to adult. It's not fun. Nobody likes to adult. But thanks for joining us. And if you would, in between doing whatever it is that you're doing, if you want to pop in and say hi in the chat, we'd love to hear from you. Also, if you could do your girl a favor and thumbs up the stream if you feel I deserve it. Heck, if you want to, thumbs down the stream. If you're like, nah, bruh, you don't deserve it this day, Bendy Lou, I'm done, thumbs down. Do what feels right to you. I won't judge. It's just... hey, Griffey Bear, good to see you. Welcome in. I'm not sure I know that there's a delay. But it doesn't seem like that's what's happening here. Like we're not waiting because there's a delay in the feed. It feels like we're waiting because we're waiting. Like they just haven't started yet. And one thing I will say about this particular judge is thus far during the trial, she was very on schedule, very prompt, basically ran a tight ship. And the thing is that when there's sentencing hearings like this, right? So when the verdict is read, then after the jurors are dismissed, then the judge will address the state and the defense and ask about a pre-sentencing investigation, and just how much time each side thinks they will need to be able to present their case. So the state will be presenting the aggravating factors and the defense will be presenting mitigating factors. And both sides said that they didn't intend for it to be very long. So when that happens, the judge will block out, a certain amount of time for a hearing like this, but that's not all they have to do today. They're still hearing other cases. So Sprinkled Donut, this case is about she was 20 at the time. Her name is Chloe Driver. They were driving from North Carolina down to Florida. They were moving. Okay. And it was Chloe, her baby daddy, his other two wives, and another man named Jason Spillers. They were part of a polygamous, I don't like to say cult because I'm not, I mean, but that's the label. So polygamous cult. And Jason was not part of the relationship as it pertained to the other, to the wives, to the three women. Those were solely this guy whose government name is Brian Joy, but he goes by Ben Yamin, Ben Michael, Z. Anyway, they were moving from North Carolina to Florida, and then they stopped in Georgia because Z had some belongings at one of his friends' houses. So, and he was going to get them out of his basement. So when they stopped, the three wives got out and they all decided to take a nap. So the two of the wives went into this gentleman's home upstairs and took a nap in one bedroom. And Chloe took Hannah, her 13-month-old at the time, into another room by herself, and with the intent of, for the purpose of taking a nap while they had stopped. Good morning, boss lady. Good morning, little red. I'm getting there, love Louie. I'm getting there. So at some point during this stop, Chloe, who is upset and is also seems to be struggling with some type of mental health issue. And basically her deal is she doesn't want to be in a polygamous relationship anymore. It's not working out for her. She doesn't like it. It's, she's done. But Z is like, man, I don't give a rat's fat kneecap. You can be done all you want. I'm not changing anything. So she goes downstairs, retrieves a knife from the butcher block, goes upstairs, and proceeds to stab her 13-month-old daughter 4 times. She then stabs herself multiple times in the neck. But before she does all of this, she locks the door. So the items have been retrieved from the basement, and Z comes upstairs because they're all ready to go and can't get into the bedroom, kicks the door in and finds Chloe on the floor, gravely wounded, severely wounded. I don't say gravely, but severely wounded. But he finds Hannah gravely wounded. 911 is called. Hannah did not make it, but Chloe did. And then subsequently, Chloe was charged with malice murder, felony murder, and felony cruelty to children. And so now we're waiting. And she's been found guilty, but mentally ill. She pled not guilty by reason of insanity. So now we're going to do sentencing. Now, I will say this about the urine drinking. It's not actually that rare. And urine, if you have nothing else, if you don't have any underlying issues, if specifically a UTI, urine is sterile. However, the people that drink it say and swear that there's so many health benefits to it. Yes, Patricia, she also is prevented from taking the child if she attempts to leave the cult. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Okay. And the deal is, with the reason I say something about the reason why I start sort of the way I feel like I kind of poke fun at the drinking urine is because it seems like the way that Jason Spillers talks about it, that's what he drinks. Like, my beverage of choice is sweet tea or a Pepsi, right? If I could just, those are my beverages of choice. If you were to ask, it seems to me like if you were to ask Jason Spillers what his beverage of choice is, he would tell you urine, the way he talks about it. And also, the thing is, and all the reason I poke fun at him is because he pontificates as if he's highly, highly intelligent, when the fact of the matter is he uses big words incorrectly. So he's about appearances. He'd much rather appear intelligent than actually be intelligent. And I find that to be incredibly aggravating. It doesn't take much work to look up definitions of words so that you understand how to use them correctly, particularly if you say things such as, I value intelligence, I pride myself on being intelligent. And then a slip every once in a while, that's one thing. People have, it is what it is. We're human, right? That's why pencils have erasers. But to do it consistently, that is the difference between a mistake and a pattern of behavior. So that's that. Okay, now the situation. Good morning, Donna. Mike, good to see you. The situation with her being prevented from leaving. If she left the cult, she wouldn't get to take the child. I don't know how I completely feel about that, and here's why. Because when Chloe gave birth to Hannah, she did give birth in a hospital, okay? However, she checked herself and the baby out, AMA, against medical advice, because that's what Z wanted, okay? So Hannah doesn't have a birth certificate or a social security number. When that happens, if there's no custody agreement between the two parties, each party has equal rights to that child. So just as much as Z would have been able to take Chloe whenever and wherever, Hannah, excuse me, they both had equal rights to Hannah. So Z could have taken Hannah wherever and whenever, right? But Chloe could have as well, although I don't think that she knew that. So I do think there is a certain element of that to it. I think I will say that I think she probably did fear that, probably because she was naive. However, shortly before this all happened, which was in January of 2020, that Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving prior in 2019, was it in January of 2020? Trying to think. I don't remember now. My brain is just, ugh. But I'm also not sitting up here telling you guys how I value intelligence and how intelligent I am. So there's that. I'm allowed. Okay. So that Thanksgiving prior, or maybe that October prior, Chloe made a video at the behest of her mother. She was at her mom's house, and Z had Hannah and allegedly would not return her. And essentially what had happened was they had contacted law enforcement. And so truth be told, likely what would have happened in that scenario, if Chloe had not returned to Z, what would have likely happened in that situation is that Hannah would have been placed in emergency foster care by the state, and both Chloe and Z would have been given DNA tests to verify that they were the parents of the child, because there's no record of they're not listed. There's no birth certificate. So there's no mother listed and there's no father listed. So essentially that Hannah was like an undocumented child. It's, she would have been an undocumented birth in that way. So there would have been no paper trail. Like the hospital would have had documentation, but there would have been no birth certificate. So it would have been a very sticky and dicey situation. And Little Red, yes, Lisa is correct. They did scam vid loans in all their name. Yes, it was like 60, I think it was 65,000 or something like that. Lisa, that's what I want to say. So yeah, she's the only one that got it. That's where they got that money from. And so there's, that was another little like hiccup in the whole Z having total control over Chloe. And here's why. Because like I had mentioned earlier, she transferred 50,000 into her mother's account. And maybe I'm just naive in this and not thinking outside of the box enough, but if it were me, all right, and I wanted to exert total control over another person, and there was a loan, and I don't even care what kind of loan it was, just if not even a loan, if there was $65,000 sitting in an account, I would have absolute control over that account. That account could be in that other person's name, but rest assured, I would have all of the credentials to be able to log into that account, and the other person would have zero credentials to log into the account. But the fact that Chloe was able to transfer that amount of money and it essentially go undetected, yes, the money legally is hers. And not only is the money legally hers, because the loan was made to the government in her name and her name alone, Lil Red, if the government decides they wanted to press any charges, Chloe alone is responsible. She would be the one holding the bag. Hey, Kitty. Good to see you. So the money is in her name, but I feel like with the LDS, the FLDS, okay? So that's another type of polygamous cult. The mothers in the FLDS, specifically Warren Jeff's cult, his sect, they all receive government benefits, food stamps, Medicaid, stuff like that, right? And while that money or those benefits are in their names, the head of the household, the husband, is the one who physically has the cards, the food stamp cards. He controls it completely. So, yeah, so I see, this is the thing when it comes to people, humans, just in general. Now, granted, the dynamic is going to be different because there was such a significant age gap between Chloe and Z. She was 16 when they met initially, and he was 38 years old. That's a significant amount of time. And as mature as a person can be, at the end of the day, there's really no level of maturity that is a replacement for life experience, I think. A lot of us, you just learn through life. Life teaches you. Hey, Trio Girl Mom, good to see you. Patricia, I agree with that. Urine is waste for a reason. We expel it from our bodies for a reason. I hear some noise. I'm going to Google this thing about urine because I do remember Googling it before. Hold on. And I also remember just from my own, hold on, I'm Googling it. Yeah, see, it's a thing. Oh, wow. Here we go. No, urine is, okay, Susan, I stand corrected. Susan is correct. No, urine is not sterile. Bacteria. Urine naturally contains bacteria, though the levels are usually low. Bacteriophages. Urine also contains bacteriophages, which are viruses that kill bacteria. Urinary health. The bacteria in urine may contribute to urinary health and disease in ways that are still being discovered. So there you go. Okay, here's the deal. Okay, this is where it comes from. All right, this is where it comes from. Urine is normally sterile when produced in the kidney and stored in the bladder, but it is likely to become non-sterile as it leaves the body. So there you go. Now we know. Regardless, I would, if you are considering consuming your own urine because you believe there to be benefits, health benefits to it. I can't tell you whether there's health benefits or not. I'm not a doctor, and I would advise anybody who is considering that to ask a doctor, a healthcare professional, do your own research. Don't just take Jason Spiller's word for it. That's my advice. That's it. That's all. And so back to this dynamic that existed between Chloe and Z. There's a significant age gap. And like I said, there's really, she could have been the most mature 16-year-old on the planet, right? But even if she were, there's no replacement for life experience. And the fact of the matter is he had decades on her. Okay. And as she got older, it seems she did sort of learn, life has a way of teaching you, like I said, and she started to maybe question things. And I think what's hard in the court system, in our justice system in the United States, is the justice system is very, very black and white. It's not nuanced at all. So, like, you're either guilty or not guilty, right? You either committed the crime or you didn't. They either proved you committed the crime or they didn't prove that you committed the crime. And human beings are not like that. We're not one thing all the time. We are many things simultaneously. And so I think that both things can be true at the exact same time. I think, personally, this is just my opinion. I think that there were times when Chloe was totally under the influence of Z. She did what he wanted her to do when he wanted her to do it. But I also think there were other times when she pushed back, when she said, no, I don't like that. I don't want that. But the law and the criminal justice system doesn't allow for that. Not during the trial phase. During the sentencing phase, there is some allowance made, which is why, the state will present the aggravating factors and the defense will present the mitigating factors. The mitigating factors are intended to be, for lack of a better word, the gray area. And, oh, wow. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa says, I appreciate that you talked about Z having equal rights to Hannah as the other parent. I was screaming this during trial, wondering why this was ignored as if he wasn't an equal parent. Grandma had no rights. That's true. And I'm glad that you appreciated that because that's the facts. In most states, grandparents can get rights in most states. And how they would go about that is different. But usually, grandparents' rights are not a given. I do think that there's maybe a couple of states that they're kind of a given, but it's not in the same way as parental rights. Most states, though, if grandparents want rights, they must go through the court system to establish those rights. And even when they do go through the court system to establish those rights, they're not always granted. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. And I will agree with this is facts, Patricia. Patricia says, with everything, no matter how little that we learn, we change. We are designed that way. Exactly. We are ever evolving as people. And I do think that there is an element to Z's personality that he is adept at spotting the vulnerable and exploiting their vulnerabilities. I think that he is a predator. There's something fundamentally wrong with a human being who has anything in common with a 16-year-old. For example, I love Star Wars, all the Star Wars things, all Star Wars all the time. Are there 16-year-olds on the planet that also enjoy Star Wars to the level that I do? Of course there would be, right? Would we have that in common? Yeah, we would. But that's not enough. That would be it. That's where it would, we would have that. You can have that that thing in common with them, that commonality, right? But, okay, I'm almost 48. I'll be 48 at the end of January. It's really difficult for me to say, and it almost wants to stick in my throat a little bit. But I digress. Okay. So, but where that commonality would end is that the original Star Wars New Hope came out when the year I was born in 77. Okay. A 16-year-old would not have been able to see, like I did, Return of the Jedi come out in, let me make sure I'm accurate about this. Usually I know this right off the top of my head, but I have to check. 1983. Okay. They would not have gone to the movie theater in 1983 to see the theatrical release of Return of the Jedi. So we don't have that. There's something fundamentally wrong in that, in my opinion. You don't have anything in common with a 16-year-old that you could build on. Just saying, oh yeah, I like Star Wars too. That's about where it would end. Hey, just on, good morning. That's an interesting question, Kitty. Let me look. Let me highlight this. So let's ask that. Let's ask the chat. When Americans want to move to a different state, do the laws in each state influence your decision? Personally, for me, no. I don't really think about, I don't actually, no. But I think that it depends. Hey, Humanimal. I think let me look just to make sure. I feel like Star Wars might have been the first movie that I ever saw in theaters, but it might have been, no, it wasn't. It was E.T. because E.T. came out in 1982. So E.T. would have been the first, E.T. was the first movie I ever saw in theaters. Oh, was yours too, Love Louie? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, E.T. I love E.T. I still love E.T. I will say this. I was born in Arizona and lived there until I was 10 years old, and then my family moved to Texas. I would consider myself a Texan. I love Texas. I moved from Texas and I lived in Florida for 7 years. And while I enjoy and I liked Florida, I missed Texas. There's just, when they say that Texas is like a whole other country, it is. And I don't know, you guys, I missed it, and I'm glad to be home, quite frankly. I miss Texas. There are things that you can buy in Texas that you cannot buy in Florida. For example, and I know this sounds small, but it does make a difference. I love, if I'm going to not make homemade refried beans and I'm going to make canned refried beans, the only canned refried beans for me is the brand Gebhardt. Florida does not sell Gebhardt refried beans. Can't get them. And I don't like Rosarita. There's something, I don't know what it is about that. But you can't get it. You can't get them. You cannot get them. There's other things like, for example, Whataburger. You cannot get Whataburger in Florida. Where I was in Florida. Okay. Once you get to the panhandle of Florida, there is a Whataburger there, but you cannot get it where I was in Florida. You also cannot get Jack in the Box in Florida, where I was. Even the Dairy Queens in Florida are different. The Dairy Queens in Texas are all the things. Like you can get like the chicken steak. You can get the steak finger basket. You can get the chicken, all the things, right? In Florida, where I was, they're all like Orange Julius Dairy Queens, and they don't serve the same. Yeah, Texas is the best. So Little Red, I just don't like them. They're not good. And I love Whataburger. And I will say this. Now, I have been in Texas. Saturday will be a full 7 days. And I have yet to have Whataburger or Jack in the Box because I budgeted X amount of dollars for gas. And you know what they say about best laid plans. So I'm a little cash poor right now, but I'm waiting. And as soon as I'm back in black, that is the first thing that I'm going to treat myself to is a Whataburger because I missed it. I've been craving it. Last night I dreamt about Whataburger. That's how much I've missed it. It's ridiculous. I know. Like, come on, Jen. It's so ridiculous. That's such a small thing. And, but yes, I just be loving Whataburger. All right. So looks like they're about to get ready to start. Hopefully. Yes. Thank you, Lil Red. Let me, here you guys go. If you want to tip your hostess for Whataburger, here's my links. All right. Anyway, there y'all go. But yeah, I'm excited for that. I really have missed Texas, and I will say this: the best part of being in Texas, first of all, it's my home, and I missed it. Is I am with my grandbabies, and I have had the best time with my oldest granddaughter, getting to know her. And, I was apprehensive because I was like, what if she doesn't like me? But we clicked right away. And I've just had the best time with her, and hearing her little voice in the morning. She comes in here to get me, and Grammy, wake up. I just love it. So I've had such a good time just spending time with her. And, it's been really good for me because just, if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to, while we, are waiting for court to begin, just on a little Judge Bev sidebar. She keeps me busy in a really good way because I have, I don't know if you guys, I know most of you guys know this, but there might be some people who are listening now and on the replay who don't. I have kept up with the Sebastian Rogers case, from missing persons case, from the beginning. I've followed it. I have consumed an immense amount of Sebastian Rogers content, good and bad. And being with my grandbaby, I have, it's limited the amount of consumption of that content. And I think it's actually been good for me. I think that it's become become is not even the right word. It's been like this for a considerable amount of time, probably since maybe the second month that he was missing, for sure, mid-March, beginning of April. it ceased, in my opinion, to be about finding Sebastian. About Sebastian Rogers was lost in his own missing persons case from mid-March, I would say, on, and it'll be a year in February. So it's become very toxic. And I got a comment on the last live that I did that said something to the effect of, you know what your problem is? You're spreading hate just like all the other creators. And I gotta say, I'm a little taken aback by that. Thank you, Sunday Doodles. I appreciate that, babe. I was a little taken aback by that because I've tried my level best. I mean, I'm human, to cover, when I do cover that case, when I do talk about things going on in that case, to cover it from a very neutral standpoint. I don't dislike or like Chris or Katie or Seth. I don't know them to like or dislike them. And for me, I don't know. See, and I kind of feel like that too. Little Red, like I did watch what's been released thus far of that footage. And to me, I feel like I knew what you meant, babe. Thank you, Love Louie. I appreciate that because I couldn't figure it out. And I even commented back to the person I did. Because look, if you feel that I did, just tell me how I did that. Okay, Lil Red, I actually intend to do an entire live on that footage. And I have some ideas about it, but I want to kind of like, I'm just gonna, because that's not what we're talking about here. That's not the case and whatnot. And there are people that, and I respect this, that want nothing to do, as they're very concerned for the child, for Sebastian. They're worried. They want him found, and they hope all the time that he is found, that he's returned safely, and all those things. And they feel that way at the same time as they don't want to hear the coverage of it because of how it's become. And I completely understand and I respect that. So I'm going to kind of like, I just went off in the woods a little bit, or the weeds a little bit, but I'm going to go back. We're back on track now. I do want a lot to do a whole live on that. And I do think that, just generally speaking, when you see things that are released, like a small portion of a much longer video, right? It is problematic. And I will use this example. When with the case of Darlie Routier, it doesn't, to me, I don't want to argue guilt or innocence because that's neither here nor there, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the point of what I'm about to say. There was footage of Darlie released where she and the family were having a graveside birthday party for the boys, complete with silly string, laughing, balloons, all of that, right? Okay. And that was recorded secretly. She didn't know she was being recorded. And I don't have an issue with that it was secretly recorded. But it was recorded and it was released to the media. What was not released, what was not talked about, is the longer version of that recording, which included prior to the release of the balloons, the silly string, the smacking of the gum, a very somber memorial where there was lots of crying, where there was what you would typically expect to see from a grieving parent. And that is the problem when things like that are released in that way. And you would be amazed at the amount of people, including the jurors that listened to her trial, that did not know of the existence of the longer video. Hey, Shelly Bean. And that's the problem. And see, what I was hoping when I came to YouTube and created a channel was that would be the thing that YouTube would do, that YouTube true crime content creators could correct. Okay, because see, the mainstream media, with what is the saying? With great power comes great responsibility. And so the mainstream media, they are held to a specific standard, ethically and legally, when they release stuff, right? They have to vet, they have to get sources, all the things. But the mainstream media, typically in very well-known cases, will continue to repeat a narrative that isn't 100% true over and over and over. And it doesn't matter how far apart documentaries are done in time, it just seems to happen. I'll give you another example. There is a narrative in the West Memphis 3 case that Damien Echols was targeted by law enforcement simply because he wore black and he listened to heavy metal music. That isn't the truth, the whole truth, okay? The truth is there was one member of law enforcement that specifically targeted Damien Echols, and that would be Jerry Driver, and he hounded the investigators working on the murder investigation of Christopher Byers, Michael Moore, and Stevie Branch. He hounded those investigators. The lead investigator, Gary Getchell, didn't even listen to him at the beginning. It took quite some time before he even entertained the thought that Damien Echols might have something to do with this crime. Okay? That's the truth. The truth is that Jerry Driver did, which was his juvenile probation officer, he did target Damien. He did not like Damien. Part of it was the fact that Damien was a typical teenager. He was very flip. He was a smart ass. He had a sharp tongue and he had quick wit. And he would say things to Jerry that were not true just to provoke him, just to poke at him, because he thought it was ridiculous that Jerry Driver was so obsessed with Satanists being in West Memphis, Arkansas. So that's like huge. That's part of it, but the truth of the matter, but that narrative gets told over and over and over and over again. Look at, Little Red has pointed out, the narrative surrounding Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her case from 2015 all the way until her release. When any mainstream media would talk about Gypsy Rose Blanchard, for the most part, when they would tell the backstory of her case and how she got to be where she is, the narrative surrounding that was the same across the board. And the fact of the matter is, no, babe, you have not missed anything. Becky P, good to see you, babe. We're all just kicking it, waiting. But the fact of the matter is, as mainstream media, they actually should have, and it would have been much easier for them to get a hold of certain documents that would have shown that some of the things that they were reporting as fact were actually not fact. For example, surgeries. Does Gypsy Rose Blanchard have an extensive medical record? Yes, she does. And I've never disputed that. It's the contents of that medical record that I dispute. By and large, the majority of the contents of her medical record are tests, diagnostic tests, non-invasive diagnostic tests. And I've always found it interesting that when her medical records, specifically in the documentary Mommy, Dead and Dearest, because that documentary, her criminal attorney participated in. And there is a scene with her attorney and Rod and Christy Blanchard, and they're sitting in the attorney's office at in a room where they would have a meeting. It's a big table with multiple chairs, and they're going over the medical records. Okay. And her own attorney says, when you look at this record from this hospital, there isn't anything after 2005. The documentary was filmed prior to Gypsy it started before she actually got her plea deal. It ends with her plea deal. So, and Erin Lee Carr was given some of her medical records to look at. And if they would have looked, they would have seen. And I think as I'm listening, this is really the crux, I think, of this case, this last sentence. Why are we concluding anything she did was not her beliefs? I think this is the crux of the case. How much, for lack of a better word, how much free will did Chloe exert? How much of what she did, what she believed, all of those things were her choices and not forced on her? All right, here we go.
After a jury trial, we're before the court for purposes of sentencing.
All right. Is the defense ready to proceed?
We are.
Does the state have any evidence in aggravation of punishment?
Your Honor, we'd like to present a victim impact statement by the victim's father, and then everything else will just be proper argument.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and tell me what the state is asking for as a sentence in this case?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, the state's position is that as to counts 2 and 3, the felony murder counts, those would be vacated by operation of law based upon the jury's finding of guilt on the count 1 malice murder charge. The state would be asking for a sentence on count 1 of life without the possibility of parole. The state's position is as to count 4, the aggravated assault charge, that would merge into count 1. And the state's position is that as to count 5,
Are y'all seeing what I'm seeing? Is that him? Is he there? Hold on. Let me push play.
Cruelty to children in the first degree, that carries a penalty of 5 to 20 years, and that would not merge. So the state's request is going to be life without parole.
Does the defense have any argument about the merger and vacated counts as stated by Ms. Roper?
Yes, we do. We would be arguing that count 5 would merge by operation of law as well. It alleges the exact same conduct that is contained within count 1 that serves as the basis for the malice murder. The way the state charged it in this particular case is that it unlawfully caused the death of Hannah Nicole Driver by stabbing Hannah Nicole Driver in the neck with a knife, which is the exact wording, Judge, of count 5, by causing cruel and excessive punishment, physical, mental pain by stabbing Hannah Driver in the neck. So it is our position that based on the merger with the underlying felonies and the felony murder, that would be a case that you would not be able, that would merge and would not be able to sentence separately.
Okay. Does the defense intend to introduce any evidence in litigation?
We're going to argue, and then Ms. Driver is also going to speak.
Okay. All right. Ms. Crawford, if you'd like to present the victim impact statement, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Can you turn on the monitors, please?
What is
Thank you, Your Honor. And would it be acceptable for him to deliver that from the podium?
I thought he was locked up, you guys. I'm not sure what's going on, honestly. That was Z. I thought he was locked up too, you guys. I'm super confused. We're all just going to learn this together. We're all just going to be confused and hopefully get answers. She sees him.
He doesn't need to bring anything up.
She wants you to leave everything.
You need to leave it back there, sir.
Oh, don't. Yeah. I don't know what he was doing with the box of Legos or the Lego box. Who knows what was in there?
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay. You can have
If
a
you
seat.
will move the microphone,
Yes.
please.
You can have
Is it okay to stand? To present?
You have to talk in the microphone, so it'd be better to sit so we can hear you.
Please sit, sir.
Forbidden to stand?
Oh my God.
Can you state your name?
Benjamin Eliav ben Michal.
Okay. And can you spell that?
B as in boy, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, Y as in yellow, A as in apple, M as in Mary, I as in igloo, N as in Nancy. D as in boy, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, hyphen, M as in Mary, I as in igloo, C as in cat, H as in hotel, A as in apple, E as in Edward, I as in igloo, L as in Lucy. Eliabu, I left out.
That's
E as
fine.
in Edward, L as in Lucy, I as in igloo, Y as in yellow, A as in apple, H as in Harry, U as in useless.
Can you tell us what your relationship was to the victim in this case?
The victim was my daughter,
Okay.
Hannah Nicole Driver Ben Michael.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Benjamin, I want you to, or Mr. Ben Michael, I want you to tell the judge about what Hannah was like in life.
645 days ago, I had the most beautiful living daughter on Monday, the 5th of December, 2020. She was dressed in a tiny prescient little pea coat that was also colored pea, curry yellow. We were at a rest stop in McDowell, North Carolina, and I brought her toward her favorite thing, the arbors, in the middle of the rest stop where the grass was green, and the trees were tall and the roots were old and ripped up. I like to call her Naima, which means pleasantness, and she was pleasant to all she came and encountered. The most pleasant.
What was her disposition and demeanor like?
While we stood at that tree, she counted every layer of the roots. She was 13 months old. She had had a penchant for trees since she was a month and a half year old. She was sweet. There are babies that are planned. We know what the opposite of that is. But then there are babies that are planned. This child was deliberate, intentional, and the mental work of 2.5+ years prior to her 9.5 months in utero and her entrance into this world. There are a very special sister with 3 babies. And by the last one, Eliana, we came up with a term. There are forward-facing babies and not forward-facing babies. I have an older daughter who's estranged, you've heard about here, named Eiley. She was not a forward-facing baby. Eiley cared about mommy and daddy. You put her head in your armpit and you were wherever you were, and that was not Hannah Nicole. Hannah Nicole was a forward-facing baby, meaning when you carried the baby, she needed to see everybody and smile at them, everybody in the room, as if she almost had an innate nature of knowing that she had very limited time. She had to see everything, and she'd get really, she'd let you know that she needed to be turned around if you were not holding her face forward-facing babies. My sister's little Eliana was like that. I learned to hold her that way. She wanted to be taken around. She wanted to count everything. And she was looking at those roots that day in her little coat, and she had her little curls that came over her hair. And that's my last really strong, close memory of holding my daughter, playing in those roots of those trees. Her disposition was just the sweetest baby. And I'm not saying that as biased dad. I've been around a lot of children. She was different. It's like she was hosting everybody she met. We would run. I wanted to bring the little Legos. So we would run. We would play. By the time she was 13 months old, she had a real thing for little cars. We'd chase them around the room together. I'd crawl with her. Beautiful. She was really weird looking. And some babies have this and some babies don't. Between like 4 months and 7 months, they're like growing. Some things are growing too fast. Some things are growing too slow. But by 13 months old, she was so beautiful.
Did you provide photographs that you'd like to
I would like to, please. Yes, Katie.
see of Hannah?
Please.
Your Honor,
Please, the court.
I'm going to publish the photographs that.
This is me and Hannah together.
And approximately how long prior to her death was this photo?
About a few months. This is at a really beautiful, inexpensive hotel room in Clinton, Connecticut, and the massive floor space for a hotel room like this. And we were chasing those little cars around all day, these little rev-up cars. So this would be the second week of August of 2020 when we were down with my family, as will be depicted more clearly in better photos coming. And my brother-in-law, Nathaniel Lewis, and my sister and her 3 children were all here meeting their cousin. This is in May of 2020. This is the quartz sand of Siesta Key, Sarasota. And we were spending a lot of time there. We were spending time at Nokomis and Venice Beach, the adjacent smaller beaches, and we would come in her wagon. And you can see what she's doing. See, she's not a passive baby. She would grab the handle of the wagon and look at me like it was the most fun thing to get and smile at Daddy at Dover, just to smile into my eyes and say, look, I'm leading the wagon. She'd do it every day. She'd take hold of the handle and say, I steer this. This is my wagon. And this is in Clinton, Connecticut again. And you can see, if you want to see her nature, that's her nature. That's her nature.
Was she a happy baby?
She was excited and happy and engaging, and she'd come up to you and want to just learn everything. She'd want to touch you and smile. She'd want to get inside you and let you know that you should be happy too. Grandma threw a tennis ball a little too fast. What? Yeah, that's a picture from a little bit of the weirder period, where some of the eyes are growing, things are growing a little too fast and out of line. And I know this is the preferred thumbnail for the court, but that was when she was looking a little silly. So that was probably back at about April of 2020. This is my parents' living room, where she would come up to this piano over here, and she had a knack, and she would start. I'd be playing piano. I've been playing piano since I was 3 years old, and I would ensconce her and encompass her in all my music, and she would come in the middle, near the middle C, and she would start doing things that actually made sense. And then she'd look at you and she'd show you she could have a beat. My older daughter, Eiley, has an immense amount of musical talent, but she could never keep a beat, but she would come up with things. But Nim, Naima, Hannah, Nicole, she could tell where the beat was. She knew where the beat of life was. She knew where to enter the room. She knew where to look at you. She knew where the camera was.
And are those the cars that you spoke of she enjoyed playing with?
No, these are very little cars. You'd pull and they'd zoom around the room. This is actually a toy that I had going back to when I was a child, and it has a revolver inside, like a revolving scoop, and it goes around, and it's funny, it like collects toys into its dump truck. This is a xylophone that was my sister's over here. Little cup. She rode that little Pumobile behind her everywhere in my parents' house, and she was amazing because sometimes as a mother you wanted to sleep a little bit more. Chloe would go over, Kui would go over, and she would open the bedroom door and lay back down, and she'd thunder down the hallway. She'd just crawl down because we had this whole area on the second floor, safe, the dogs in the kitchen, the stairs over here blocked, and she had this living room up the hallway to the bedrooms, and you'd hear her. My mom still imagines the beauty of her grandchild thundering down the hallway, crawling thunderously. She'd come and she'd play, and my Eiley couldn't leave her for 3 minutes, even when she was 12, 11 months old. Constant attention, not Hannah Nicole. Hannah Nicole, she got in the living room with her stuff. She'd make a story. You could leave her play in there for 20 minutes. She'd make up a world. She'd put the dolls. She had things at 11 months old, 13 months old. She'd be piling cars. She'd be making a whole story and happily playing. And somebody come, smile, go over, pet the dogs. This was her world. Everything here, Grandma made the entire house her world. That's why we were there.
Sir, the purpose of this hearing today is to give the court an understanding of sort of the impact of the actions of
Nobody can weigh the potential of the impact. When you lose Grandma and you lose Grandpa and you are not estranged, you have a life, a rich life lived. You have memories. It's painful. It's a natural process and cycle of life. When you lose a baby, when somebody entitles themselves by whatever precipitation, you can get into the moral philosophy if it is okay or not okay. Do you own your life? Can you take your life? But when you entitle yourself by whatever precipitations, by whatever precipitated your mind, without getting into the weeds, to decide you are entitled to take somebody else's life based on your opinion of whatever kind of mental illness, lack of mental illness, acting, pretending you're in mental illness, overlaying, masking, it doesn't matter. There is no wiggle room where you are entitled to take somebody else's life because of your impression or opinion. They are there to live life and discover what life is for themselves. The impact of losing Hannah Nicole, driver Ben Michael, cannot be measured. We sat around in the waves of some luxurious beach somewhere for 2.5 years, speaking tenderly to each other, dreaming our daughter. Before she was born, buying her the highest level, best things, doting on her. Nobody knows. Deanna doesn't know. Jeff doesn't know. Your Honor, you don't know. Nobody knows. She could have grown up and given humanity cures to things we don't even have diseases for yet. How can you measure the potential? How can you look at a father and say, the image I have of a 5-year-old, of a kindergartner, I lost the potential, I lost the view. The most unplanned child, to the most unprepared parents.
I want to say just a couple of things really quickly because I have to pause for commentary and fair use. I agree with this, what he's saying right here, which is this: when a child is murdered, the world is robbed of that child's potential. You never know what a child is going to do and be when they grow up. And that is a true statement. And I will also say that while I understand that there are very strong feelings in the chat, I am so glad that you guys are having the conversation and the disagreeing with each other without name calling and being disrespectful. I appreciate that, you guys. I really do. Thank you for being cool. All right, here we go.
Is a travesty and a tragedy of the highest order that the parents may never be able to even articulate the pain and loss of. Now you're talking about a baby who was not just planned, but planned. A baby who was meant to put their best foot forward. A baby who was taught to have a moral and cultural consciousness that would give to humanity whatever she could possibly find as her niche and knack in the world. To measure the impact and loss privately, I'm a very hard individual. I've lived a very particular life in countries that are not here to get knowledge and find things. I'm not a good model for initial reactions. In other words, I'm extremely stoic. That doesn't mean there wasn't 13 months after, in every private moment when I screeched like a frightened 7-year-old girl, where I sat for 3 months in a van just screaming and screaming and screaming that this woman believed that she was entitled to take my daughter's life out of this world because she stopped believing in having a moral consciousness and the duty to help humanity, because she believed the girls who were with us, not that she didn't believe in polygyny, she didn't believe in the girls who were with us. She believed they were reprobate, second class. She believed she put in more energy and people did not reciprocate to her, and she quit around June 3rd, 2020.
Hold on a second.
Because she planned to exit
I understand, Little Red. Love you, babe. Take care of you first, always.
the world and take her daughter with her. She may have even abused her and felt that there was some issue on a phone call between taking the girls to Connecticut when she said, if you don't get your ass back down here to the South as quickly as you possibly can, I will throw this baby on the floor because I'm tired of her screaming and I can't get her to go to sleep the way you do, which was a beautiful segue that I love spending time with my daughter, putting her to sleep. It was like my job to put her against my heart. We spent lots of time rocking and going into sleep, and Chloe just had triggers from being raped and abused as a child, suffocated and jumped on by a drunken Eric driver who caused her to be triggered by sleep. And she doesn't even know it herself. I apologize. I'm very emotional.
I understand, but the purpose of this hearing is about Hannah and the loss of Hannah and the
And this is the impact on me.
Can you tell the court whether you have any feelings with regard to punishment or sentencing?
Nothing that actually happened to her would ever change her. I don't know that no sentence, maximum sentence, could ever get through to her in a way that she won't build a new identity, a new mask, change who she is, manipulate the next party. Chloe Alexis Driver wasn't a victim. She had the most power in our group. It was called her fits. I don't know what kind of a sentence would help her. I mean, the inclination to say death penalty, maximum. She believed she could take the life of a baby out of this world, a baby, any baby, and this beautiful baby who had this much potential to help the world, an impact that can't be weighed. Nearly unlimited potential. Can we see the others?
Photos?
Yeah. There's a whole nother email with the ones with the family.
These are the ones that I have.
She didn't send that.
Your Honor, I have nothing further.
Ms. Tretheway.
I have no questions of this witness.
You can sit down.
Thank you.
Any other evidence from the state?
Just proper an argument, Your Honor. I'll reserve.
All right. Ms. Tretheway.
Judge, I just want to be clear, and from what we've talked about the never once disputed the events that occurred on December the 8th of 2020. We've always all agreed that this was nothing short of a tragedy. She's never denied or disputed that she killed Hannah. Never been any dispute either, but it seems to be falling on the wayside that Chloe also stabbed herself in the neck 5 times, once in the chest, to try to kill herself based on her mental illness. From the very beginning, this case has always been about Chloe's mental state at the time of the crime. That's it. It has always been about a young 17-year-old, then 20, naive individual with pre-existing mental health issues, involved in an abusive, both physically, mentally, by a man more than twice her age. It has always been about years of abuse, coercive control, and living in this cult mentality that only exacerbated these mental illness. It is clear from the evidence that came before this court by both the state and the defense that clearly showed that Ms. Driver was suffering from severe mental illness at the time of the crime, that she suffered from the delusions that overwhelmed her and told her repeatedly for months that she needed to kill herself.
Sunday Doodles, I could not agree with this statement more. Sunday Doodles says, I feel like the complex layers of this case give all sides a voice. It can all be true. And I agree with that. I do think that all of these things are true, that this is a very complex case. I don't think that all the time was Chloe 100% in control. I don't think that Chloe all the time was 100% a victim. I think that this is a situation and it happens all the time. Human beings are multifaceted. We're not one thing all of the time. We are many things at the same time. And I think that's what's going on in this case. That's just what I think. I also think that here we go. Let's just keep going.
There's been a documented history of mental illness in her teenage years and prior to the incident that occurred. We also heard about eyewitness testimony from individuals that were with her and experienced her during this time about her conditions and her subsequent deterioration. And that she had been asking for help and communicating this to those immediately around her because she was just getting worse and worse. During the trial, it may not have appeared at first glance to the court or to the jury that this case was about Hannah. It's always been about Hannah. We never disputed what happened with Hannah. But the only issue we were here to decide was to talk about Chloe's mental health. She's always acknowledged that what her actions were, but it is also about Chloe. As Your Honor is aware, I have been involved in this case since the day that Chloe was discharged from the hospital. I met her on December 22nd of 2020 in the book-in area of the jail on suicide watch in a turtle suit in a room where I had to speak to her through a mail slot. She had nothing in her room. She had but a mat and a styrofoam cup for water. At that time, she was still suffering from her severe self-inflicted injuries, still suffering from her ongoing psychotic episodes, and grieving over the death of her daughter. Over the last 4 years, I have had the opportunity to watch Chloe not only battle her mental health demons and try to breathe and properly observe everything that had happened, but I've also noticed that she has also grown up and matured. I have have watched Chloe grieve for 4 years over the loss of her child at her own hands, but also endure the loss of her own family, physically and emotionally, both her mom and dad, and any of the life that she had before December the 8th. There has never been a time since I've been involved in this case that Chloe has ever said, "I am not responsible for what happened," or any attempt to deflect that. This case has always been about mental health and her mental state leading up to the event. It has never been about blaming anyone else for Hannah's death, but simply an explanation to how Chloe got to this point. It has always been about seeking justice for Hannah and for Chloe, asking the state to take all of this into consideration in resolving this case. As Your Honor is aware, we worked extensively with the state for years in an attempt to work out this case based on the facts and the circumstances and the extent of the mental health issues. And also, in an attempt to explain exactly what Chloe, along with other individuals, have endured in a relationship with Mr. Ben Michael. We ask for consideration of those very facts and not to treat Chloe just as any other criminal defendant charged with the crimes. That was what we were asking of the state. Ms. Driver sat down with the state, provided a substantial amount of information in an interview to the state in an attempt to explain everything that had happened to her. This past Sunday was exactly 4 years from the incident. Monday was exactly 4 years to the date that her parents found out what happened to their daughter and granddaughter. Mr. and Mrs. Driver had originally indicated that they wanted to speak on behalf of their daughter today. But every year at this time, the events of what happened on December 8th of 2020 hits them especially hard. They do support their daughter. Ms. Driver came to trial and indicated what she observed and what she felt. So we don't want to twist court to feel because they are not here today that they don't care, they don't support her. This is just an especially hard set of scenario and facts, but also around the time of the anniversary of the incident. There has not been a single day that goes by where Chloe does not think about Hannah, that she does not regret what she did, and would do anything to go back to that time and change everything. There's not a day where Chloe doesn't think about how this affected the very people she loved, and especially Hannah, the one person she knows she was supposed to protect. There is not a day that goes by where she does not wonder what her daughter would be like now at the age of 5, or what her life would look like if she had managed to get away from this cult and treat her mental health issues.
Hi, you guys, just coming in. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Chloe is and always has been remorseful for her actions. She takes responsibility for her actions and has had 4 years to be able to see and have insight now that she is medicated and diagnosed and away from that relationship. We are asking this court to consider everything we presented at trial and the hearings leading up to trial. We are asking this court to recognize, as the jurors did, that this was never a case in which Chloe did this crime to have Benjamin to herself. It has never been a case about selfishness or anything else like that with respect to the relationship. This case was always about being a severely mentally ill woman with significant trauma that fought and fought against her own mind until she was no longer able to do so. We heard testimony from all the experts and the witnesses about her deterioration in the months leading up to this. We heard about her behavior and the delusions from those who interacted with her during that time. This was never situation where she was feigning or faking mental illness. 3 experts told us that. Witnesses told us that. There was evidence that she was experiencing these overwhelming psychotic symptoms and delusional compulsions, and that this was something that she fought every day and was very real. There was significant evidence that showed she acted in ways that showed she was losing her mind. She communicated that to the people who supposedly loved her. We all remember the testimony of Jason Spillers. We all remember his testimony about her behavior. We also know he told us how much she loved Hannah and that she would never have done anything to harm Hannah in her right mind. We are asking this court to remember the witnesses that told us how much Chloe loved her child and did everything she could to be a good mother and take care of her daughter, all while struggling with the undiagnosed and untreated mental health issues, all while struggling with emotional and physical abuse at the hands of Benjamin and Michael, and being subjected to this cult indoctrination that alienated her sense of being, her sense of self-worth, and any semblance of independence.
Okay, I just need to pause briefly for some commentary. One of the things that I'm reading you guys' comments in chat is about her behavior in and out of the courtroom, not matching up. There's, some conversation about that. And phone calls. Now, I don't know how successful I'll be. However, I was thinking that maybe it might be a good idea to listen to the phone calls, particularly the phone calls between Chloe and Z. Perhaps that could shed some light on what her thought process was. I'm just curious if you guys would like to hear those, if it's even something I should try to get.
But more importantly, it alienated her from those who genuinely loved her and who loved Hannah, her parents. Her parents were the only ones in this whole scenario that didn't view Chloe or Hannah as property. All of this combined led up to what happened on December the 8th, 2020. I'm not going to rehash everything that this court and the jury heard in this case about the 3 different experts, but all 3 experts throughout the pendency of this case have all told us about the significant depths of Chloe's mental illness. All of which agree that she suffers from very significant, severe mental illness. All of these diagnoses require significant treatment, not just medication. All of the experts told us that these illnesses require actual treatment and medication, and they just don't go away. As Your Honor is well aware, that Chloe has been incarcerated since her release from Kennestone Hospital. She was 20 years old at the time. She is now 24. Since the beginning of incarceration, she has not received any type of mental health treatment aside from medication regimens, which is constantly in flux and changing, even to this day. She has absolutely no criminal history whatsoever. We are asking the court to recognize, based on her age and lack of history, that there is opportunity for her to not only deal with these mental health issues, but become a better person and serve her sentence and still be a productive member of society, all at the same time in justice for Hannah. We are asking this court to sentence her to life with the possibility of parole. Chloe intends to utilize her time in custody in the Department of Corrections to continue her religious exploration, her education or vocational or college training, and better herself. She intends to continue to assess what she needs for mental health purposes and is going to continue to take medication so that she doesn't fall back into her previous ways. When I first met Chloe, all she wanted to do was die. She continued to express severe concerns that she would still try to actively harm herself and that she didn't want to live anymore. 4 years later, Every day is still a challenge while on medication, but it is something that she is facing head on. She understands that she doesn't need to take those desperate actions, but there are reasons for her to live, and those reasons include being there for him. As Your Honor is aware, life with the possibility of parole requires her to serve 30 years at a minimum in custody prior to being considered for parole. At that point in time, she will be approximately 50 years old, and potentially without the physical presence of her parents due to their age. It is something that Chloe is cognizant of, but also understands the importance of accepting her punishment.
Oh, thank you, Phil. I appreciate that.
That she has no issue with whatever happens, and she will respect the decision of the court. And she understands that there needs to be a punishment for what happened. She regrets this every day. She may not outwardly express it on phone calls, chirps, text messages. But over the last 4 years, there have been hundreds of phone calls, hundreds of text messages, hundreds of visits with myself and Mr. Kessler, all of which Chloe discusses what happened and is remorseful, is upset, is crying. Your Honor saw Chloe during trial, during the issues of Hannah, and during testimony. You saw her reaction to it today. She is remorseful. She is not without remorse and upset about what happened. She beats herself up about it every single day. She tries to talk with her parents about Hannah in a positive light to keep her memory alive, and wonders what would happen if she had just done something different. Justice for Hannah in this case includes a sentence of life with the possibility of parole. That takes into consideration all the things the court needs to consider in terms of rehabilitation, punishment, and deterrence. She can be treated, while likely with only medication, in the Department of Corrections, but there are other opportunities for her to avail herself, to rehabilitate herself. And we are asking the court to give her that chance. And we are asking that you sentence her to life with the possibility of parole.
I'll let the state argue, and then I'll hear from the driver.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, first I'd like to address, I don't know that it's necessary, but in response to Ms. Trethaway and her commentary about trying to work this case out with the state prior to trial. The state has always offered the minimum sentence on murder, which was life with the possibility of parole. The state extended a plea offer for her to plead guilty but mentally ill to life with the possibility of parole. That was our plea offer and has been our plea offer for a very long time. The law does not permit the state to deviate from a life sentence for murder, and that was the minimum sentence that could have been offered, and that was what the state offered in anticipation of trying to resolve this case to spare everyone the trauma and burden of having to go through this trial. That was an offer that Ms. Driver chose to reject. Secondly, Your Honor, I would like to remind the court of sort of what we saw in the pendency of this case. Ironically, most of the emotional impact of the consequences of her actions came from people who didn't even know Hannah. Came from people in this community who had to respond to the consequences and gravity of her actions. We saw police officers, grown men, who silently wiped their tears from that witness stand as they had to relive that child dying in their arms. We saw grown police officers clearing their throats to try to maintain their professionalism and composure as they had to relive the weight and gravity of what she did. We saw the jurors openly weep for that child as they had to watch that body cam video of her life slipping away and had to watch the autopsy photographs of that baby and the manner in which she was slaughtered by her mother. We watched those people weep and have a visceral reaction to having to see that child in that way. And that was something that was done by Chloe Driver. Ms. Trethewey indicated that this was because of her mental health, but the undisputed fact is she's not in that condition now. She's in above average intelligence. She's perfectly competent. She's medicated. She's receiving care. Ms. Trethewey stood before you and said she regrets this every day of her life. And she doesn't necessarily openly express it in her chirps or in her phone calls.
Okay, now one thing that I will say, as far as her behavior in court goes, okay? I don't know. I know some of you guys did because you were in here with me watching it. But Taylor Shabusiness. Y'all remember Taylor Shabusiness? First of all, Taylor Shabusiness attacked her own attorney all over the fact that he wanted a continuance. And you could see in that video that she was completely disassociated. And what actually moved me was not so much Taylor herself, but the way the officers in the court handled her. They were not rough with her. It was as if they were used to seeing her do things like this and knew how to get her back under control. That is what moved me. And I will say this about Chloe. Taylor was medicated as well. Chloe is medicated currently and is able to, when she disagrees with something, she generally speaking has a very cold and angry look to her. And I can only say what I can see in the courtroom. Does that mean that's indicative of her as a whole person? Obviously not. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a courtroom and you're going to hear good things about yourself and bad things about yourself. But she's quite expressive, particularly like, look at the face where I've paused her. She's listening to the prosecutor, and you can see on her face that she fundamentally disagrees with what's being said. Not only does she fundamentally disagree, she's irritated, angry about what is coming out of the prosecutor's mouth. So it's very difficult to get an absolute sense of who she is as a total person. And I do think we need to hear those phone calls. Let me see what I can do and what will take to get those. Okay. I'm not making any promises other than I will try my best to see what I need, to see if we can even get them. Okie dokies. All right, here we go.
I suspect what she's referencing are the chirps that the state served on the defense that she was sending during the course of her trial. During the course of her trial, where the rest of us were dealing with the burden and the weight of having to advocate on behalf of that child, she's going back to the jail every night and having phone sex with her boyfriend, talking about what size penis she likes, how she likes rough sex, how she wants to be treated like a rag doll, how she wants someone to ejaculate in her mouth. We are all having to watch people fall to pieces over that baby in this courtroom. And she goes back to the jail and can't wait to have phone sex. It demonstrates what we know, which is a complete calloused indifference for the life of this child. The one person who should care about her. What is very clear is that Hannah Nicole Driver, at 13 months old, she could experience fear, she could experience pain, and she knew that that was her mother. And in the last moments of her life, that's what she got to experience. Panic. Fear, pain, and panic, as a knife was repeatedly plunged into her body. And the fact that the woman responsible for that action, in the condition she's in today, can go back to the jail after watching her child in that condition and send chirps such as, "I'm stressed, talk dirty to me," is appalling to the state. And
Y'all, we weren't ready. We were not ready. I did not at all think that that was about to come out of the prosecutor's mouth. Now we definitely need to hear those calls.
It should be appalling to this court. And it demonstrates that she has absolved herself of any responsibility in this and not taking responsibility for the consequences and the weight and the gravity of her actions. It should be really clear to her at this stage what she did and what the weight of that is. And instead, she continues to behave like that. She continues to behave in a way that demonstrates she doesn't get it. She doesn't appreciate what she has done. But just because she has absolved herself of responsibility in this by saying it was her mental illness, doesn't mean that the court has to absolve her of that responsibility nor the law. As we sit here during the course of this trial, 4 years later, when she is perfectly stable and perfectly medicated, she continues to demonstrate a callous indifference for the actions that she caused and for the loss of that baby's life. And that is why the state is recommending a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. Because as we sit here now, she continues to demonstrate that calloused indifference and that complete disregard for the life of that child that should be given the utmost respect. And instead, a bunch of strangers from Cherokee County had to be the ones to compassionately extend our hearts to that baby.
Ms. Trethewey, does the defense have any dispute about the facts stated by Ms. Grover?
We absolutely
As far as
we do. And I'm going to preface this by saying I think it's pretty petty at this point, since we were served these at 4:30 yesterday afternoon with respect to this particular incident. They have absolutely no relevance to why we're here today whatsoever. The state can acknowledge, and I don't think they would disagree with me, that there are thousands of phone calls and chirps and text messages, including ones with that gentleman right there, that indicate that she was remorseful, that she was upset about what happened. There are phone calls, hours worth of phone calls of her crying on the phone, talking about what happened. The fact that she was talking, well, I'll say that she was talking to this individual on the phone for months leading up to trial. State has those phone calls. They serve those on us. She didn't talk about the case at that particular point in time because that's what she was instructed to do. She wasn't talking about the facts of this case. She wasn't telling this gentleman that she was getting away with anything or doing anything. She was not talking about the case because that's what she was instructed to do so. She is allowed to talk to people. She did so at the jail. She didn't talk about the case because that's what we told her not to do. The fact that she didn't say, oh, I'm upset about what happened at trial today, or I'm upset about what happened to Hannah on these phone calls, it has nothing to do with whether or not she's remorseful. And I'm going to say this, and I've kept my mouth shut about this for a very long time. I have an email from Ms. Crawford from February of 2023. Ms. Crawford and the district attorney's office sought out us to sit down and talk to Ms. Driver at the jail in an attempt to work this case out. I take issue with the assertion by the state that we categorically rejected the felony murder, guilty but mentally ill, life with parole option.
Whoa. Listen, any time a sentence starts with the words, I think it's really petty, you know I'm paying extra close attention because this so very rarely happens. Yes, I do too, Rachel. That's where I'm at too. I like when attorneys just go rogue, and this is that right now. We're seeing it. Holy moly. All right, here we go.
What we have always strived for in this case was a reduction in the charge that appropriately reflected the mitigation that Ms. Driver suffered, the mental illness aspect of it. But I'll also go back to this email. This was at the request of the state to sit down and talk to Ms. Driver at the jail. This was also at a time where the district attorney's office was well aware that there had been communication for a very long period of time with Mr. Ben Michael at the jail. In that email, the purpose of this case, the meeting, was to determine what information this driver possessed about the criminal culpability of Ben Michael, aka Brian Joyce, which could be presented at a proper under oath under any potential plea of guilty that she may enter.
Hold on a minute, because this is important. I'm going to rewind this, but I have to say, yes, Jennifer, let me tell you where this district, where the defense attorney is going wrong in the hair care. Curls are difficult to take care of. And what you want to do is have a conditioner in your hair. Okay, a leave-in conditioner. And then you want your hair to be completely soaking wet. And you want to use like your curl cream, all right? And you want to use gentle prayer hands all down the sides, followed by a light scrunch. This is overworked. But let's rewind this part about this criminal, because I'm trying to all right, let's hear what this says.
In the charge that appropriately reflected the mitigation that Ms. Driver suffered, the mental illness aspect of it, but I'll also go back to this email. This was at the request of the state to sit down and talk to Ms. Driver at the jail. This was also at a time where the district attorney's office was well aware that there had been communication for a very long period of time with Mr. Ben Michael at the jail. In that email, the purpose of this case, the meeting, was to determine what information this driver possessed about the criminal culpability of Ben Michael, aka Brian Joyce, which could be presented at a proper under oath under any potential plea of guilty that she may enter. The way that Ms. Roper is categorizing the plea negotiations in this case are inaccurate. The state, during that meeting, Ms. Driver told the district attorney's office and myself she was continuing to contact Mr. Ben Michael, provided them information that they didn't previously have, which subsequently led to the discovery of a bunch of other phone calls. Ms. Driver told them that. She was honest with them about it. What the state is not talking about here is the suicide aspect that was involved in this case, that the state was looking at this from all angles with the other people's involvement in terms of criminal culpability, but also with regards to her mental health. That has always been what this case is about. She exercised her right to trial because she has the right to do that. She exercised her right to trial because the state of Georgia, despite these plea negotiations and the evidence in front of them, did not want to recognize the mental health aspect and what we were asking for in terms of a lesser charge. Ms. Driver exercised her right to trial to show this world what that gentleman is like, what life with him is like, to put before this world that she is not the only victim of this person, and that in an attempt that maybe other people will be aware of what this involves. She has always accepted responsibility for the actions. We saw it at the hospital. We saw it with Detective Cruz. We've seen it in subsequent interviews with the experts. She has never denied what happened. She's never denied what she did and what she did to herself. And she understands what needs to be happen. At this point in time, Judge, the fact that she's talking to another individual is irrelevant. She's allowed to do that. They're not talking to you about any other phone calls where she may be talking to her parents about what happened. There are plenty of phone calls where she's on the phone with her mom and her dad, hysterical in tears about what happened. and knowing what it did to them and to everybody else that is affected by this.
All right, let me just say this, okay? I fundamentally disagree with the defense attorney's assessment of these phone calls, all right? It isn't that she is not talking about the details of the case with this person, right? That is to be expected. Typically, when you are facing a criminal trial, your attorney will tell you to exercise your right to remain silent and not discuss the details of the crime. Okay. That's a given and that is understandable. Let me tell you what's not a given and what's not that doesn't mean that just because you cannot discuss your crime or talk about remorse or sadness or anything like that, that doesn't leave the only option for conversation dirty talk. Okay, let's be clear. All right. Like that's, if you're incarcerated awaiting trial, you don't have but two options for conversation, your crime or dirty talk. I mean, am I wrong? There's a whole bunch of other conversations of topics of conversation that you could have. Am I missing something? Is there something in the manual? Is there some rule? And that her only other option was to talk dirty? Cut it out. Rachel.
The state has the right to conclude. Anything else that you wanted to say, Ms. Robb? And then I'll let y'all approach the lectern and I'll hear from
I would just
Mr.
like
Upper.
to say that the defense's stated objection with regard to all of the sexting she was doing during the trial was relevance, not dispute as to whether it occurred. The state served all of those on the defense. It didn't find it necessary to read every disgusting message into the record, but the state's position is that her general moral character is admissible at a pre-sentence hearing, so it is relevant, and it also demonstrates a lack of remorse in terms of the timing and the context of when those messages occurred in relation to the days we were watching her daughter die on video and reviewing the autopsy photographs. That's the reason
Hold the
brought that
phone.
information before you. So I'll just like to make that clear.
Hold the phone and back the milk truck up. On your new BFF, Rachel, you're not replacing me, are you? Like you are going to have multiple BFFs. I can't be replaced, Mel. There's just, although I will say Rachel Lee is quite cool. And she certainly fits right in over here. I would like for her to be in addition to, not in place of. The end. That is all. I can't, this hum does make it sound like a soap opera.
And Mr. Kessler, if you want to
You know I'm
approach as
insecure,
well,
Mel.
Ms. Robert, you can come to the lectern and
Oh, she's gonna
make
speak.
any counter statement that you'd like to.
Oh, he probably does have black
You will place
black
her
shoes and
under
white
oath,
socks.
Want me here? Okay. All right, Chloe, for the first thing I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you raise your right hand. Do you swear the information testimony you're about to give this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and
How
nothing
is
but
her
the truth,
lawyer
nothing but the truth?
swearing her in? Where's the
You're
court?
going to have to speak up. I know that you're fairly soft-spoken, so were you able to get that? All right, go ahead.
I appreciate the opportunity to be heard during this whole process. I am terribly sorry for many things in my life, but most of all for who was lost, and I always will be. Every single day I live with my guilt. I have drowned in sorrow and regret with such an acute awareness of it for so long. I never imagined there would be anything more than that for me. Quite frankly, I didn't believe I deserved anything more than just that. In the past, I genuinely believed I had to die every day for my daughter, to hate myself for my failure in protecting her. But I know now that life goes on whether I suffer or not, so I need to stop taking from it. I know now that I must live for my daughter instead and do the best I can to be kind and loving and giving, because that's exactly what being with Hannah taught me. I see her everywhere. in everything. She lives on and shows me that beauty can be found anywhere, even where I'm going, because I can feel her in my tears. I feel her in my friend's embrace. I see her in a stranger's kindness, in someone's undiluted joy at seeing their loved one. I hear her in people's laughter, and I know her most of all in my family's loyal love for me, even still. No matter how bad our losses, life can be good again, and this is not my end. I accept my punishment with peace, and I want it to be known for every person that has prayed for me, that our Father has heard you, and I have been given a contentment that the world cannot take away. My daughter's memory rests now, so I am able to as well. I want it to be said that no one ever plans to lose control of their own mind. This trial was only a snapshot of my life and mind. It's easy to review the past and say what could have been done differently. It's even easier to say what someone should have done. But that's just it. In the midst of a terrifying situation, you can't actually think. The horror and fear you feel clouds your thinking abilities and disconnects you from reality. So though I may not legally meet the definition of insanity as of today, I know in the bottom of my heart that I was, because I never would have done what I did had it not been for my decompensation. In the end, we can't go back and undo the bad, no matter how much we want to, but we can learn from it and prevent it from happening again. I will continue to seek help for my mental illness because of this. I read once that suffering is cheap as clay and twice as common. What matters, though, is what each man makes of it, and I promise I will make the best of whatever you give me, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yeah, y'all stay. Yes.
All right, y'all. I thought there was
I
gonna.
have continued to think about this case after the verdict.
Hold on, I don't want to interrupt the judge. I will say this. I thought there was going to be an outburst from Z back there during when she was speaking. I did, but he didn't do it. So, all right, here we go.
As I am sure all of us have, I have been aware that based on the law, that my only real discretion in this case is whether to sentence you to life without parole or life with the possibility of parole. I am aware, as Ms. Treadway pointed out, that the parole eligibility in this state would dictate that you would serve 30 years of a life sentence before you were considered for parole. This was a heinous offense with evidence that was so graphic and traumatic that I began to do research on what kind of support and help we could give the jurors who were having to consider it. A parent killing a child is something that just offends us on the deepest level. It is a wrong that just is unfathomable. It just cannot be understood. And it scares us because it is so contrary to just fundamental moral behavior and what we expect.
It goes against, hold on.
Of the bonds between.
It flies in the face of the natural order of things and just what it is to be a parent. It's just, it is. The judge is correct. It's unfathomable. And I think that it is probably one of the scariest, if not the most scariest of the crime, if not the scariest crime, that a person can commit is the murder of their own child, because it's just so against everything. It's just so against the natural order and what it is to be a parent. It's just, ugh.
Between human beings. And I have all those thoughts. I have had all those thoughts in this case. I noticed throughout the trial and considered it as part of the tragedy, quite honestly, that there were really no family members here to support you, and that Mr. Ben Michael was not here interested in the outcome of what was going to happen to his child, the person who killed his child. That was a very interesting dynamic to me. So I'm glad to see him here today. You don't need to speak to me at this point, sir. Your opportunity to speak has come and gone.
You weren't in jail the whole during the whole trial.
Doesn't do anything to make the whole situation.
MK, hey! Good to see you.
But as I said, I'm glad to have heard from Mr. Ben Michael and to...
Hey, Deb in Indiana, good to see you.
Honestly, try to give him some benefit of the doubt, understanding that there is an impact on him that cannot be measured, as he put it, and just again an impact on the universe. One more child who never goes to school, never gets to have a boyfriend or go to the prom, never gets to decide what a career is. They're not words to talk about what a terrible thing it is. But I do also feel bound to consider the fact that if you had succeeded, we would not have been here. We would have read about a tragic, inexplicable murder-suicide. I have to take into account that 3 different psychologists testified as to your profound mental illness, the depths of your sickness, your illness. I have to take into account the fact that the jury found you guilty but mentally ill, because they obviously were aware they had the choice of imposing a different sentence. Different verdict, I'm sorry, a verdict of guilty that did not reference any of your mental illness. Georgia law, Georgia statute means that the guilty but mentally ill verdict gives the Department of Corrections some direction and some ability to continue to provide treatment for you, but that is in their discretion. There's no black and white law as to how a judge is to consider that verdict. I will note that the jury found that you did not meet the criteria of not guilty by reason of insanity. The law in Georgia has been the same for about 200 years now. Whether or not that ever changes because of changes in medical and societal understanding of mental illness and how to treat it, I do not know. The intersection between law and medicine can be, well, it does not always mesh well. Things evolve. We now have treatment courts for people with mental illness and addiction, substance use issues, and the law and the courts slowly come about in proper cases to figure out about treatment. I don't quarrel with the jury's verdict. I don't impose this sentence out of sympathy. But I do think under everything that I heard, the sentence needs to take into account the possibility that in 30 years, there may be different treatment modalities, different recommendations, different possibilities for your rehabilitation. I think the notion that you are cured because you're taking medication regularly now is something that I don't accept. I believe everyone acknowledges that, or at least based on the law and the testimony we heard in this case, that borderline personality disorder, for example, is a deep sickness that is not treated just by...
I like this judge, but I miss Judge Kranick, who was like,
treated
hold on.
In order for you to gain competence.
I like this judge, but I miss Judge Kranick, who was like to the point. Sarah Boon, I sentence you to life in prison. The end. Like, he was quick about it.
To be able
But I do appreciate her words.
Actually go to trial. I don't think anybody who's dealt with anybody with mental illness is naive enough to suggest that you're cured. And I know I don't mean that as a criticism or a punishment. It's just reality. You did a horrible thing. But based on the evidence at trial and based on particularly the mental health testimony, the court will impose the following sentence as to count 1, malice murder, life in prison with the possibility of parole. Count 2 and count 3 are vacated as a matter of law in that you cannot be sentenced to more than one murder count when there is only one victim. Count 4 merges into count 1. I agree with the state that count 5 does not merge into count 1 as it contains a different element, that is that the victim is a child under the age of 18. That is not an element of malice murder specifically. So as to count 5, the court imposes a sentence of 20 years to serve in the state prison system concurrent with count 1. have a right to appeal this conviction. You have a right to file a motion for new trial, requesting other post-judgment relief. You must file any such notice of appeal or motion for new trial within 30 days of sentencing. You are entitled to have a lawyer represent you, and if you cannot afford to hire one will be appointed to represent you. I know Ms. Trethewey and Mr. Kessler are familiar with the procedures of our Indigent Defense Office as to how new counsel would be appointed to represent you moving forward. I would request that that the counsel will remain with us, and we will keep Ms. Driver. We can keep her here to get the sentence prepared, reviewed, signed, and get that taken care of before Ms. Driver is taken away from the jail. Oh, the holding cell. Yes. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You know, Rachel, I actually have to agree. I feel like if I did that, I really wouldn't care. 30 years, Jennifer, is the minimum she would have to do. Now, what do we think? You think Ben Michael is going to speak? You think he's going to speak to the media? Oh, excuse me. After this, sorry, my coffee. Excuse me. I can't stand when that happens. Like there's no warning. You're just talking and then there it is. So sorry, you guys. It's so uncouth of me. No, she can. Okay, so she can appeal right now. So Kitty asks, she can appeal after 30 years. No. She can appeal her sentence and conviction right now. She is not eligible to be considered for parole for 30 years. And what I will say about the parole is this. Just because you're eligible, Susan Smith, we're looking at you, doesn't mean that you will get it. One of the disadvantages to a scenario like Susan Smith's is, and I'm not sure how it will work in Georgia. See, every now in where Susan Smith is, now that she's had her first parole hearing, she is eligible to apply for parole every 2 years, I think it is, for the next ever, until she either gets out or she passes away. And that is very difficult for the family, particularly in Susan Smith's case. I don't know after 30 years if, let's say she's eligible for parole at 30 years, but she's not granted parole. How often after that can she reapply? Oh, I get what you mean. Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure how often after that she can apply. I will say this. Like I said earlier, just because you're eligible and you apply for parole does not mean it will be granted. And one of the things that they take into consideration during a parole hearing is your behavior while you're in prison. That definitely counted against Susan Smith. She has acted if you cannot follow the rules in prison, which is one of the most regimented, places you can be. They watch you like a hawk. I mean, it's what prison is. It's the foundation of prison, right? Then how are you going to be able to function and follow the laws in free society? So, her her, that will play, if that will be a factor. I will agree with the jury. She does not qualify for not guilty by reason of insanity. While she has, I believe, some mental health illness, hers was not so severe that at the time she could not appreciate the wrongfulness of her actions and change her behavior accordingly. So I do not think that she is an Andrea Yates. And even Andrea Yates still does not want out. She says she is exactly right where she belongs. And honestly, Andrea Yates wasn't actually worried about where she was going to be. It was her defense attorneys. So, you know, I think that she's no Andrea Yates. Let me just stop sharing this really quick. Well, let me just skip it forward to see what else we have here. All right, they're going to go off here. So let's stop sharing. Let me make this smaller. Let me get over here to the YouTubes and see if there is like a press conference or anything going on here that let me just refresh this really quickly. I don't see anything. Hold on now. Yeah, I don't see anything. I don't know. I don't think that let me see something. I mean, I agree with, see, this is the situation, and this is the issue, and this is really actually the bigger conversation, right? How do we address these situations with mental illness and criminal behavior? Because it's my opinion that, and I think this is what the judge felt, she's young. You know, she's 24 years old currently. And I think that judges are very, and the fact that she's a female, because I do think if Ben Michael was in her shoes, and not at his age, I'm talking about at 24, I think he would have gotten life without the possibility of parole. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that, babe. Okay, so Jennifer coming in clutch for your girl says, I just looked up Georgia, and for a life sentence, if she's denied, then she has to wait 8 years. That's good. That's really good. But I will say that I do think that if the shoe were on the other foot and it had been Ben Michael, Brian, Z, whatever, if he was the one who was standing trial and convicted and got exactly what she got, the jury found the exact same thing, guilty but mentally ill, I think he would have gotten life without the possibility of parole. I think that there's just, I think that's just how it is. I think that's unfortunate, but I do think that there's different treatment of men and between men and women in the justice system. There just is. I don't always agree with it, and I don't always think that it's right. But I do think that the judge would have. I was not surprised by what the judge sentenced her to, because I think I think the judge was really struggling with throwing it away. I am saying it's unequal for men and women. Yes, I am. And it works the other way as well. It works the other way as well. I think there are circumstances, certain crimes. Murder is one of them, but it's the circumstances surrounding murder where a woman is judged more harshly than a man. For example, this is a good example, Pamela Smart. Okay. Pamela Smart received a far stricter, tougher, harsher sentence for her parole, her role, because I started to say part, her role in the murder of her husband than the boys who actually pulled the trigger did. And she received the harshest sentence because if not for her, then they would not have killed her husband, right? And the things that were said about her, while they're true, I think that those boys should have received a tougher sentence than what they did. I do. So, I mean, but to be fair, Lisa says, and how she was as a teenager, which was exactly how she is now, and nothing to do with Z. I misread that. So now I don't have to say, now yes, she's the same. I misread that at first. So I thought you were saying something different at first, but I misread that. This is a difficult case with many layers. It's multifaceted. It's a tough one. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is a 13-month-old baby was murdered by her mother. A 13-month-old knows their mother. They know their mother's face. They know their mother's smell. They know their mother's voice. So when Hannah was looking up, she was looking into her mother's face. And it was brutal. And that's really, at the end of the day, it wouldn't really matter what Chloe's sentence is. It will never bring back Hannah. And the world is once again robbed of a child's potential. And maybe the reason we are where we are as a society is because this continues to happen. Because maybe the children that have been murdered, that the world was robbed of their potential, might have had solutions to some of society's greatest ills. And now we have no solution because it was taken from us at the hands of another. Sometimes a parent, sometimes a stranger. And that's sad. It really is. It really is sad. And that's really all I have to say. Like just breaks my heart. Just breaks my heart. All right, you guys, thank you so very much for being here this morning. This was a tough one. It was a good discussion, though, I thought. I am probably going to be back tonight. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure what exactly I will be back with. But I want to thank you guys all for being here this morning. Have a great rest of have a great rest of your day. Be safe out there. Hug your loved ones just a little extra tighter tonight and appreciate them. And I will talk to you guys later. Thank y'all. Have a great day. Bye.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do. Well, fuck you.
No malicious intent or effort was towards it.
No malicious. Finish her!
Minutes later.
We all do a little match sometimes.